how would you describe your characters' journeys throughout this season and just, being able to relate with one another through that, despite
Yeah.
one of our characters, some of our characters being dead, but how are you able to like relate with these characters throughout that process?
I mean, it was a roller coaster. It was an emotional roller coaster, and I think one thing that you said, it's about like it's kind of catered to young adults, but we were talking about this. We think this is the themes that it explores, and I think this is for all age categories. I can imagine it being, and I think I don't know, just exploring our character stories was it was pretty it was sad. It was just really rough to kind of see how it ends and but a lot of the things that we talk about in this show, the themes that we explore, they're so important, I think, and such an honor really to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, there's so much there's so many underlying things being said that aren't graphically or that aren't said so bluntly, but I would say that, there's a lot of metaphors in our show, right? And when you say grief and we talk about ghosts, right? So spoilers, right? So we're good. We talk about ghosts and we talk about how, some people have asked, so are these ghosts actually ghosts? Or are they figments of our imagination? And I would say, what's a ghost to you? What is it, the ghost of your past? Is it the skeletons in your closet? Um, is it the people that stay around in your mind but that you can't let go? And so what is that, grief, or can it also be acceptance? And so, there's also, this what I was talking about when I was saying underlying is that there's a lot of, she's abusing substances, she's mixing, um she's endangering her own life.
yeah.
There's so many things that if you were to take away the liars from, which is crazy, and I would love an edit of this, but if you were to take away the liars from, from Summer 17, you would see a girl that's pretty much going through a full mental crisis, right? And again, you see the family around her, and though they might be a little nicer now, uh, they haven't changed much, they've kept on keeping on. And I think that it just shows a lot about what it's like to grow up in a family that is I don't even know how to explain this Sinclair's that is so obsessed with entitled and privileged and just like obsessed with the idea that we don't go to therapy. We don't talk about our feelings. We are shoulders up, chin up, shoulders back. And I think that Cadence's journey in this series is a lot of just like realizing what she's been born into, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and kind of being terrified by that at the end of it.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
And I love
long-winded answer, but yeah.
I love how you mentioned the fact of like what are ghosts to you because some people have
Yeah.
living ghosts. Like
Yes,
that could like
100%.
a
Yeah.
person that has disappeared from you that is still living and reappears. That could be a ghost to you. So I think
Yeah.
that's important to distinguish. But I also want to talk about the fact that I like you said, the things really haven't changed at the industry. Like they maybe appear to be better and nicer, but like at the root there's still some issues there. So how would you describe Cadis's decision to kind of like leave it all behind? Because she could have just felt right back into the family, kind of been the perfect Sinclair. But why do you think it was so symbolic for her to kind of, like did leave the family photo that was happening, just like drive off and just like, throw the symbolic the necklace that we've seen all season for her to kind of just like be done with all of that in that moment.
I think it's the least she can do for the memory of her friends, you
Hmm.
know. She's going to spend the rest of her life regretting, mourning, and missing the loves of her lives.
Yeah.
Um, and knowing that she even had a part of it was a part of it and a big part of it is enough, I think, punishment for her. So I do like see this, even though it was kind of hard to justify, even smiling ever in that last episode. There is something beautiful about just taking one step forward, right? So it's like it's always once it's the first step. It's admitting you have a problem, right? That's the first step. And so who knows what's going to happen in regard to Cadence. I don't think it's very wrapped up in a tight bow because, she's decided to leave. But if you remember the last episode, that comes right after a very big threat from her grandfather saying, if you do so, I will expose you. So, a lot of us leave our families behind, but we carry the baggage with us. You know what I mean? And so we'll see what happens there.
Because I want to break down Mirren's relationship with her mother because I think that's one of the most tragic aspects of this series to have
Mm,
such a fraught mother-daughter relationship. We see so much anger and hurt and sadness on both sides, and to know how things ended. Even
mm,
though it's a beautiful tribute to the character that happens at the end of the series, but just
right.
the fact that like it couldn't be like truly fixed before
Yeah.
she died. So how would you describe the dynamic she has with her mother and just being able to, there was so many powerful scenes when she punches the painting. I was hurt when I
Yeah.
felt that hurt when I'm like, wow, I couldn't imagine a parent doing this to me. So how would
Mhm.
you describe and break down kind of like that dynamic between the two?
Well, I think it's a really interesting one. I think that a lot of female, the mother and daughter relationships can kind of fall that way. But the inability to really let each other be and be human on both sides, I think was really powerful. I think that Mirren very much paints her mother in this light, and she, as much as she like really wants to be her, she also hates the fact that she wants to be her, and that's kind of self-destructive in its own way. So I think that her relationship with her mother was so interesting because it made her question her own relationship with herself. And I think that there's a beautiful scene when she says, I don't really think anyone saw me. I think that line is really dedicated to her mother. And I don't think that she saw her, and I don't think they saw really each other. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was a hard one to do. But because I feel really lucky that I've grown with my mom, and my mom is like my rock, and we went through a lot of stuff, especially when I was her age, 16. It's a hard one to be, but luckily I had the chance to,
Yeah, yeah.
make, it didn't end there. So yeah, it's a really sad, yeah, it makes me feel really weird. But
But
yeah,
yeah,
it's a deep one.
yeah. And Joseph, for you, I think conversely, what I love about Johnny's trajectory of this series is kind of how he kind of begins to recognize his privilege. Because when you first see
Mhm.
him, it's like he doesn't really understand a lot of things that Gad's going through. And then once you learn more about him, you realize, oh, he's enacted this privilege in certain ways in very,
Yeah.
big, terrible ways. That's the reason why he can't really break through to understanding. So what was it like to kind of see
100%.
the character kind of come into his own as far because it's really a trajectory from like the first episode to the last episode of him even being willing to want to burn it down like everyone else does.
Yeah, I think it's just like just understanding where Johnny was coming from at the start,
Mm.
but then also understanding where he has to go in terms of like an arc. I think at the start it was more of like it wasn't like privilege for him. It was just the way that I saw it was that everything is how it is and I can't do anything about it. So who cares? Let's just ignore it and blah 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 and then slowly comes to understand that that's actually that's you can't live like that. You do have to acknowledge these things because it's different for other people. Other people can't just ignore it. Gad's character can't just ignore it. And I think he slowly understands that, and that's yeah.
I love that scene with your little brother when you explain heaven to him and he goes,
Yeah,
"Isn't
yeah,
that what our life is?" And he goes, "Well,
yeah.
not everyone's life, but yeah, you're right." Yeah, I like